Hi everyone, it's singer Chris Ruggiero. Now don't go anywhere because profiles will be coming right up.
Welcome to Profiles. I'm Mickey Burns. Today's guest is 23-year-old singing sensation Chris Ruggiero, whose stage show takes his audiences on a journey through the golden age of rock and roll, breathing new life into the timeless classics of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. After a short break, I'll be back to welcome the multi-talented Chris Ruggiero to Profiles. Welcome back to Profiles. I'm Mickey Burns. Today's guest, 23-year-old singing sensation Chris Ruggiero, has already developed a career that's on full throttle. He recently performed critically acclaimed shows in Las Vegas, while at the same time he released his latest 2-CD collection that features 25 classic songs of a bygone era. And he does it all with a beautiful voice and an infectious personality. So join me now as I welcome singer Chris Ruggiero to Profiles. Chris Ruggiero, welcome to our show Profiles.
Thanks so much for having me, Mickey.
Pleasure meeting you. For our viewers, are you still 23?
I am still 23, yes. I used to be 22, now I'm 23.
23-year-old singing sensation from New York, right?
Yes,
Up
from
north.
Westchester,
Yes.
New York.
Interestingly, what I found interesting about your career thus far is your music takes audiences through the golden age of rock and roll with the music of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And my question is, how did you first get inspired to perform this music of a bygone era?
Well, you know, when I first got into this music at 12 years old, so I wasn't your average singer or musician, so to speak, because most people who are into music get into it at much younger ages. So I was kind of a late bloomer, I guess you could say, at 12, but I was in my grandfather's car and we were headed on the way to my Little League baseball game. Whoa. And he was playing a CD in the car by Larry Chance and the Earls.
Oh, great.
Now, at the time, I had no idea about this form of music yet.
Sure.
He was playing a song called In the Streets of the Bronx that Larry sang, and actually it was in the Bronx Tale, a different version of it. And I said, Poppy, what is that? What kind of music is that?
And he said, that's doo-wop.
And he said, that's doo-wop music. And then it just kind of spiraled down from there.
And I read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, that your grandfather was a doo-wop singer at one time.
Yes.
And he recently, and that he sang background on one of your albums?
He actually did. So he was a singer when he was a kid. He
Yeah.
used to sing on the street corners with Larry Chance and the Earls. Larry
Yeah.
was a good friend of his. And when we went in the studio to record my last album
Yeah.
called Time Was,
Right.
I took him into the studio with me because we filmed it in Florida and he happened to be down there at the time. And it was his first time in the studio in over 60 years. So it was definitely...
He must have loved that.
He was in his glory. And I mean, I was too, because the thought that I could have my grandpa come in the studio with me to sing background vocals on one of his favorite songs, I Only Have Eyes for You.
Priceless.
Yeah, priceless.
Yeah,
and it'll be a moment him and I will never forget, that's for sure.
Early in your career, like many other artists who are young, you sang to tracks, right? That's how you get started.
Yeah.
These days, you're working with big orchestras. Explain to us what the transition was like for you.
Well, you know, every singer, when you start out, you work with tracks, right? And a lot of people even start out singing karaoke somewhere, and that's how they discover their love for singing.
That's how you get
and
noticed, right?
That was me as a little kid. But to go from tracks to a big band is a whole different story. I mean, when you start out with tracks, like when I first started singing, I tried to copy a lot of singers that I loved so much. So for me, it was Paul Anka, it was Frankie Valli, and to me, I tried to sound just like those guys. But as I guess you become more of an actual singer, you try and put your own story into the songs, and that's where the band comes in and the new arrangements for these songs.
Right. And you strive to be unique, I would assume.
Yeah, well, you know, I sing songs from, as you know, from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that I didn't write and that aren't mine, but I make them mine through the arrangements and my interpretations.
And I don't think anybody else is doing that besides you.
I think
which
you're
is
right.
unique in itself, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And I also, in watching some of your videos, that I used to have a band back in the day, right? We were talking about
Yeah.
that before we came on camera. But I used to love horns. You love horns.
Me too.
You know, and there's never enough of them for you.
You're absolutely, every show that I'm on, there's at least 2 horns and sometimes 6. I mean, I love horns. It's classy, and it's, you know, I tend to think I'm an old school kind of person, and to me, horns are just all of that. You know?
I felt that way too.
Yeah.
Brings it to the next level.
Absolutely.
Now, your manager who's here today, Joe Marone, my question is regarding him. He is certainly an accomplished manager, but how did you convince him originally to take you on?
Well, look, it took a lot of convincing.
I bet it did.
It did. We first met at one of the shows that he produces at the Tarrytown Music Hall.
Yes.
Which is not far from my house.
Yep.
So I originally asked him if I could sing a song on the show, and he said, well, you know, what would that do? What do you want to be? And I said, well, I want to be a singer.
Yeah.
You know, and of course I didn't know what really entitled and what came about as to being a singer, you know, the things you had to do. And he said, well, he said, look, you don't want to just come and sing a song on my show or 2. That's not going to do anything for you. So when you're really serious, come back to me and you can tell me, and think about it when you really know this is what you want to do. Because I didn't know that you could be a singer without a hit record, you know, and he told me that you could be. And so a couple months later, I came back to him and I said, this is what I want to do. That's it.
And this is something you wanted to do full time at a young age.
And if you're going to do it, you have to do it full time. It's a full time job, but I love it, and I'm very grateful.
And
for
you're doing
him.
great.
Well,
you're all over the place.
If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. So.
All right. Kudos to Joe.
Yes, absolutely.
In the beginning, who were the singers that you admired most?
Well, as far as the people that I worked with, I guess you could say Bobby Rydell was like my #1.
Super nice guy too.
Yeah, the best. Such a great guy and a great entertainer.
Yes.
And people like him really inspire me, not because he has a good voice, but because how much he cared about the craft for the music. Guys like now who I work with, Peter Noon, on some shows. When I was a kid, I didn't grow up listening to Peter's music because I was listening to doo-wop. But now when I watch Peter's show, I appreciate what he does so much because he is an entertainer's entertainer.
Showman, yeah.
He's a showman, you know?
I read somewhere you also were very much into Sinatra.
Yeah.
And also Jerry Vale, who goes unnoticed.
Yes, well,
People don't
Frank
mention him much
Sinatra and
anymore.
Jerry Vale, the 2 things they have in common are their storytelling through a song.
Absolutely.
And just their performance, their stagecraft, which is what I try and emulate, you know, by watching them and studying them. And it's not even the voice, because I don't sing any Sinatra music, and I sing a Jerry Vale song.
But you could.
Oh, I'm sure I could, but what I really try and take away from those guys is the whole stagecraft and how they have such class.
Yes, and I've seen your show. I've seen you on a couple of different things. And I've seen your growth in a couple of years. I think it's phenomenal.
It's a lot of practice.
Couple of years.
Yes, and a lot of video watching. And
Now, right at the beginning of your career, as luck would have it, the pandemic hit.
Of course.
Right, which kind of shut everything down.
It absolutely did.
However, you used that period to work and fine-tune your stage show. How did that help you?
You know, I always say things happen for a reason, and sometimes I don't know what the heck those reasons are. But if this all wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have had the 2 years to be able to hone into my craft.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
You would have been out working
and
trial and error.
Yeah,
Instead,
and sometimes you don't get a second chance.
That is correct.
And look, I'm still far from perfect, but I definitely took the 2 years. I mean, I was in my basement every day in New York for 4, 5, 6 hours a day, going over songs that I had never listened to and learning songs and different techniques and even dance moves, so choreography, and a lot of time I spent on the computer watching other entertainers that I thought were the gold standard.
I saw a clip of you singing Diana on the PBS special.
Oh yeah.
And I saw a little Elvis in there. You went down on one knee at one point. I said, that looks like Elvis.
That was funny. That
I don't know if you thought about it or it just happened.
No, it just happened. Everything then, and that was the first time ever that I was on stage when I was on that PBS special.
Yes, I know.
I mean, I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, my next question was going to be, tell us the story about getting a call from T.J. Lubinsky, who, when you were just 18 at the time, and for our viewers, TJ produces all those great PBS specials. Tell us a story about getting a call from him.
Yeah, so I never knew that I could really sing it at the time. I was about 18. I still wasn't a singer yet. And a friend of mine called me and he said that there's this production company looking for young singers singing older music.
Right.
So I sent in a video of myself singing to this company, and a few days later I got a phone call from T.J. Lubinsky.
You didn't even know who he was.
And I didn't know who he was yet. To come down to Asbury Park, New Jersey. And so my parents and I drove down there, and we walk into this theater, and every rock and roll star and doo-wop star from the 50s and 60s, you know, was there. Charlie Thomas and the Drifters, Larry Chance and the Earls, Jane and the Americans. Everyone that I thought was, you know, the people who were my idols were there. And what I didn't know was that they were filming a nationally televised PBS special.
You didn't even know
I thought I was just coming down to be on a doo-wop or a rock and roll show as a multi-act show. I had no idea.
This is a nationally taped show on PBS.
And I had no idea. And so that's basically how that started.
And they asked you to sing with the Duprees.
They did.
And you sang lead, You Belong to Me.
I did.
And the next day you were exposed to a national audience.
Yeah, which was so surreal for me because I had never even expected, like I said, to be on TV. I had no idea.
No, and I read somewhere that that might have been your first time singing with a full orchestra?
It was the first time singing with a band ever, and we were one of the only groups that day that didn't get a rehearsal.
Come on.
I swear.
It came off great.
Thank you. It was,
were you happy with the final product?
No, and I look at it now, I look back, I said, I wish I was smiling, I wish I did this.
Well, you were nervous, you were 18.
Well, I was nervous as could be, and nobody showed me what to do then. I had no idea.
But you know what worked? Your voice was good.
Thank you.
You might have been nervous, but the voice held up.
Yeah, well, it was one of my favorite songs of all time, so I was happy that I got to sing
Now, as we said, you're 23 years old, but you recently performed in Las Vegas. How'd they work? How'd the shows go?
Oh, we sold out the first two. We did well on the third one, which was really exciting for me.
Now I saw the billboard in Vegas, this huge, humongous billboard that was promoting your show and promoting you. But what were your thoughts and emotions when you saw that billboard for the first time?
Well, it was emotional.
I
because
bet.
I thought a kid like me who grew up loving this music so much, but never really knew that I could be a singer or do anything with it. And now to drive on the side of the highway and see the billboard that said sold out was,
with your likeness on there.
It was very cool.
I used to work in Dangerfields back in the 80s. We used to get a little flyer that would go in the corner of the window, you know, and as soon as you were done, it was out.
That was it.
But we were in Dangerfields, you know.
Yeah.
While you were in Las Vegas, you got to work with two legends, not one, two. Clint Holmes, singer, and music arranger and composer Charlie Calello. He's a giant. What was your experience working with both of these legends?
Well, they both helped so much in creating the two new albums that I have out.
Tell us what they are real quick.
Well, one album's called I Am Chris Ruggiero.
Right.
And that album is basically the reason we called it I Am is because it's my interpretation on timeless classics, songs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, like Put Your Head on My Shoulder, Betcha by Golly, Wow, Run to Me.
Yep.
And the other CD is called Time Was, which is the one my grandfather's singing on. And that's for the purists. The people who just like the songs the way they were.
So how did Clint and Charlie help you with the progression of all of this?
So my manager and I flew out to Vegas.
Yep.
And for the last 6 months before we flew to Vegas, I was studying everything that Clint Holmes was doing online. I was looking on YouTube and watching every video I could find of him because he's, to me, is the ultimate entertainer.
Especially in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so we finally went out and met him. And we started working on songs together, and he said, you know, let's sing Put Your Head on My Shoulder, but how would you sing it like this with just the piano? And he had the piano player just play something under it, and that was how I started to sing not like the record anymore. That's when I started to sing, you know, with my interpretation, like I was saying. Yeah, so we took a lot of the stuff that Clint came up with in Vegas and helped us with, and we dropped it on Charlie Calello's lap, and he finished the arrangements.
Now, for our viewers, just give us a list of some of the people that Charlie has worked with.
Well,
besides being a Four
Seasons.
Yeah,
well, he arranged most of hits for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Right.
He had more hit records he arranged than any arranger in history.
Is that true?
Sweet Caroline for Neil Diamond. He arranged stuff for Humperdinck, Streisand.
I didn't know all that.
Everybody. And every time we talk to him, there's a different person we didn't know about that he arranged. So he basically arranged stuff for everyone under the sun.
So now, we talked about your 2 CD release, but you have another single in the works?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
And by the time this airs, the single should probably be out by then. So what happened was we were in the studio finishing one of my first albums that you have in your hand, I Am Chris Ruggiero.
Yep.
And we actually, the song that was playing was My Cherie Amour. We were just finishing the song up. They were just mixing it down. And these 2 young kids walk in the studio. I didn't know who they were. They didn't know who I was. So they're you know, looking around, listening to the song playing. And they said, "Is that you singing on there?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, you know, we really like that, and we dig this kind of music and your voice." And so we were speaking for a while, and it turns out that the 2 of them are songwriters from Canada.
Oh.
So they had a couple of songs with them that day, and they actually let me listen to a few of them, which were really, what I thought, really nice songs.
You like them?
Yeah.
They were a good fit for you?
Yes. Okay. And so they went back to Canada, and one of the songs they wrote, actually, they wrote for Bublé. And Bublé decided not to record it because he went a different way with a new album. So Bublé released the song back to them, and they called and said, "Hey, we got this song that we wrote for Michael, and maybe you'd sound good on it."
Yeah.
So we said, you know, let's give it a shot, and we heard it, and I thought it was a great song because it's a song that it's not going to offend anyone who likes the doo-wop stuff from the 50s and 60s, but also it sounds like something that could be on the radio today.
Now, another thing too, when I was going over your albums, so many great tunes on both of them, right? And there's so many great songs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Of course.
So my question is, what criteria did you use in choosing the songs for your albums? That's a difficult task.
Well, what we tried to do is pick songs that were hits in more than one generation.
Well, that's a good, why
or,
not?
You know, songs that someone my age would know, and all the way up the line. And also songs that were maybe in movies or TV commercials, songs like I Only Have Eyes for You, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, My Cherie Amour. I mean, who doesn't know those songs, no matter what age you are? And,
good point. And
the songs had to also be what we thought was timeless, in the sense that they have a great melody, a great lyric, and they tell a great story. And those are 3 things that never go out of style.
Sure, and those are the ones you selected.
Yes.
Now, regarding your performing on stage, this is what you said. I don't know if you remember this, but you can certainly critique what I said.
Okay.
You said, when I'm on stage singing a classic love song and look out into the audience and see the twinkle in their eyes, I know they're thinking about a special time and place in their life.
Absolutely.
That's priceless as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, look, I love singing just as much as the next singer does. But for me, the real part that I love most is knowing that I took the audience back to a different place, their prom night, their wedding dance, their first kiss. That's what's special to me. I mean, I love meeting the audience after the show and hearing their stories, and some of the stories I hear are so touching and inspiring. So that's really my favorite part about being a singer.
And developing your fan base is developing a connection with these fans.
And that's what I love to do, connect with
and that's right up that's your wheelhouse, right? I also read you're Italian.
Yes.
100%?
Almost, but you know, the rest doesn't matter.
And I read somewhere that you say, at times I get very nervous. That's an Italian thing, right?
Of course.
And what you recently did to combat that is you got into meditation.
Yes.
Right? How did that help you?
Well, I noticed that when I first started, you know, singing, I'd be all over the place all the time, and my head would be in 20 different spots. And I wouldn't be able to concentrate because I was always thinking about getting on stage and doing the show. But the meditating definitely has helped.
It does work. Do you have a coach? Do you do
it
by phone?
No, it's a transcendental meditation. So they teach it to you once. The Beatles did it.
Did they?
Yes. It's taught to you once. It takes a few hours.
And then you practice
it. Set for life. You do it every day for 20 minutes, 2 times a day. and it helps you relax.
Are you less nervous?
I am. Okay. Now I get on stage and I'm not nervous at all, so it works.
Hey, that's good.
Yes.
Do you get butterflies?
You know what? Only if I'm not prepared enough for something.
Yeah, preparation is a key to success.
If you know by the back of your hand, you know
you're not going to get nervous. But
that's
if you're
right.
trying to wing something,
you can't do that.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. How does social media, you're a young guy, you're 23 years old, impact what you do?
Well, social media allows me to connect with people. Like we were saying before, I love to connect with the fans, and I hate to even call them fans because to me they're family.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. By the end of every show, everyone in the audience becomes family. But social media has allowed me to share my music and what I'm creating with people.
Right.
And also over the last 2 years when we couldn't do live shows, I've been able to make so many videos and share them with people who wouldn't have been able to see them, and it was maybe the highlight of their day or help them, you know, be happy.
I noticed if you put a new video up on YouTube, it's not uncommon for you to get 200,000 views or something like that. So these people are looking for new stuff from you.
All the time.
You got to feed the beast, right?
But that's I love it. So my show schedule's up there. There's even a part that's called In the Kitchen on the website.
I'm going to talk about that. Let me talk about the food next. Before we get to the food, good Italian, right? We save the food for last.
That's right.
Chris, when you leave here today, right? When you're in New York, you're a New Yorker. You're heading out to perform, I read, is it Illinois?
Yes.
And then from there, you're back to Las Vegas.
We are.
Question is, do you like being on the road?
Yeah, I love it because I get to meet the people in person that follow me on Facebook who I've never been able to meet. And of course, along the way, I get to stop and see things I never had before and try a lot of new restaurants because I happen to love food since I'm Italian. So
we got to watch the weight, Chris.
It's very hard.
All right. I have another philosophy quote by you I want to read for our audience. And this is what you said, all right? I'd like to share this with them. You said, I try to make every move and sing every song with a touch of class. That reminds the audience of a time when entertainers put their heart and soul into their songs, and delivering an exceptional concert was paramount.
Yeah.
Well said.
And that's why, to go back to before, that's why I have such respect for entertainers who truly care about their show.
Yeah. And you do.
Thank you.
And it shows.
Thank you.
And you love what you do, and that shows. You can't fake that.
No.
I don't think so, anyway.
Well, Bill Medley, my friend now, says the audience smells insincerity like blood in the water. And it's true.
Now let's talk about the cooking.
Okay.
Okay? Because somebody, I mean, you told me, but somebody else told me you're a great cook. Cook.
I'd like to think that.
Okay. And that you like to make cooking videos for YouTube and Facebook.
I do.
What's your favorite dish?
Well, I like making pasta from scratch.
Of course.
That was one of the first things I learned how to make. I went over to my friend's house, and her grandma was over from Italy for Christmas time.
Yes.
And this lady didn't speak a lick of English, not even hello. And I stood there and I watched her make pasta for a few hours, all by hand, no measuring cups, no pasta machine, just a wooden dowel 5 feet long. And I watched her make pasta, and I went home that night and I did it. And since then, it's just been one thing after another I've been making. And I love cooking because I love when people eat my food. I love looking at their face and seeing that smile.
Just like when you sing.
Just like when you sing.
But you don't have the time that you need to do the cooking like you would, as you would like.
Yeah, and I'd love to cook for the whole audience every show, but that'd be a lot of cookies.
2 more questions for you, Chris.
Okay.
Best piece of advice that you could share with young aspiring artists that would love to do what you've done with your career?
Well, I would tell them you really have to love people.
Yep.
You have to love singing and what you're doing, and you got to be nonstop and just keep pushing through at all times, even when you feel like it might not work out.
Wow, that's good advice. Years from now, when you reflect back, what do you hope that your legacy will be then?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
You know, I just hope that people remember me for carrying the torch of classic entertainers from a bygone era. People like Frank Sinatra and Bobby Darin, and not so much their music or the way they sing, but their class and stagecraft and what they mean to the audience on stage. So that's what I hope people remember me for.
Well said, Chris.
Thank you.
I want to say one more time, Chris Ruggiero, thank you so much for stopping by Profiles today. 23-year-old singing sensation.
That's right.
You're from New York, heading out to Chicago, then Vegas, and they can catch you in action.
Yes.
Thank you so much for stopping by Profiles today. Continued
Thank you,
success.
Mickey. Thanks for having me.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Singer Chris Ruggiero is a throwback to the teen idols of the 1950s. He appeared on the nationally televised PBS doo-wop special when he was just 18 years old. When the pandemic hit, he used that down period to work on his stage show. The result? Celebrated performances in Las Vegas and across the country. The future looks very bright indeed for this likable 23-year-old singing sensation. Well, that's about all the time we have left on this edition of Profiles. Until next time, I'm Mickey Burns. Thanks for tuning in.